Hi, I'm Leora, and this is not just a story about a bad job. It's about family and the price of being underestimated. When I left the finance world to fix broken tech on a farm in Spokane, my sister laughed. At dinner, she raised her glass and toasted to real success, then turned to me with a smirk and said I was still figuring it out. Everyone laughed. I didn't. My parents never defended me. They said it was a phase. My brother told people I was off the grid. I found out my sister got married after the fact. And when I saw her post mocking my work publicly, that was the final straw. They said I was dirty, that I'd chosen a dead-end path. 5 years later, I invited them to dinner. And this time, I was the one holding the clicker. And the truth. But what did I show them? What made my sister's face go white in front of our entire family? And why did my father stop speaking halfway through my presentation? You'll see. But I'll say this. Success doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with silence. The clink of wine glasses echoed like distant bells, delicate and sharp. I stood just outside the archway to the dining room, pretending to be mesmerized by a painting of abstract flowers on the hallway wall. In truth, I was trying to time my re-entry, hoping, maybe foolishly, that the introductions were over. Kala had thrown this dinner for Mom's 60th birthday, hosted in her pristine Atlanta high-rise that looked like something out of an HGTV reveal. The theme, celebrating powerful women in media, was as performative as the hand-picked guest list. Influencers, editors, station producers, and me, the sister who'd left all that behind for farm dirt and tech wires in the middle of nowhere. When I finally stepped into the dining room, no one looked up. A soft jazz playlist floated under polite conversation and polished silverware. I slid into the only empty seat, conveniently wedged between an empty chair and the wall. Kala raised her glass. "To our mother," she began, her voice commanding the room like a seasoned anchor. "To a woman whose grace has been our guiding light, and to all the accomplished women here tonight who've made their mark in the media world." Applause followed. Smiles. I lifted my glass halfway, until her eyes landed on me. "And to my sister, Leora," she added, pausing just long enough for the smirk to form, "who chose a unique path, from city lights to cowfields, from newsrooms to fixing cameras on cattle farms. She's still finding her way, right?" Laughter rippled like someone had tossed a pebble into calm water. A few raised brows. I caught one woman mouthing, "Oh wow," to her partner. I felt a flush creeping up my neck, hot and electric. My fork slipped slightly against the plate. I didn't raise my glass. I didn't look at Kala. I didn't even breathe too hard. Just sat there, perfectly still, and counted the seconds until dessert. They didn't see it, but that moment lit a match in me. I excused myself a few minutes later, murmuring something about needing the restroom. My heels clicked softly down the hallway, and I ducked into the powder room. It smelled like lavender and expensive silence. I stared at myself in the mirror. Not a tear, not a crack in the face, but my expression had changed. I knew it had. There was something sharper in the corners of my mouth, something tired of swallowing every dig, every pitying look, every story told without me. The truth was, they never saw the long nights, the frost-bitten fingers working on outdoor sensor rigs, the low-signal Wi-Fi meetings with tech advisors, the slow but steady progress of turning an idea into infrastructure. All they saw was the grease under my nails and assumed it was failure. And still, I held it in. Because what was the point? They had already written my ending. When I stepped back out into the hallway, I paused, again. From around the corner, I heard my mother's voice. Gentle, low, too casual. "It's just a phase," she told my father. "She'll come around eventually. If not, at least Kala gives us something to be proud of." I didn't move. Not a flinch. My hands rested by my sides, fingers twitching against the fabric of my dress. I turned and walked toward the balcony instead of the dining room. Outside, the city skyline shimmered like someone had lined the horizon in diamonds. I stood there, arms folded, remembering the silence in our childhood home whenever I talked about technology, about changing the way agriculture worked, about building something that didn't have a polished logo or network slot yet, but would change everything. They never believed it. I was dirty. My sister made fun of my bad job. 5 years later, my net worth ranking silenced her. But not yet. Not tonight. I walked back into the dining room with my shoulders square and my mouth set in a quiet line. No one noticed. They were already deep into dessert. Miniature lemon tarts and espresso shots in dainty cups. The laughter had shifted tones, smoother now, like nothing awkward had ever happened. Calla was retelling a story about a panel she'd hosted for CNN the previous month. Gideon leaned back in his chair, beaming like she'd just accepted a Nobel. Maris dabbed the corner of her mouth with a linen napkin and didn't so much as glance in my direction. I waited for someone, anyone, to acknowledge me. Nothing. I slid into my seat without a sound. The tart was still cold. I chewed it slowly, the citrus bite harsher than I remembered. Around me, silverware clinked. Conversations ebbed and flowed like I wasn't even there. Like I hadn't just been made a punchline 20 minutes ago. I could feel the heat crawling back into my face. But this time, it didn't burn. It calcified. After a few more minutes of enduring the performance, I leaned toward Calla and said quietly, "I've got an early flight tomorrow. I'll head out." She smiled. Too bright, too rehearsed. "Of course. Safe travels." No hug, no guilt. I walked out without looking back. It was after 10 p.m. when I reached the rental. A little craftsman tucked under oaks on a quiet street. The kind of place someone books for peace, not for parties. I slipped off my heels by the door, the silence inside pressing against my skin like humidity. I tossed my clutch on the side table, kicked off the urge to cry, and walked straight to the kitchen. 1 glass of water, 2 sips. Then I sat on the floor, back against the lower cabinets. I replayed everything. Not one word. Not even Theron, who'd always called me the weird genius of the family, with a kind smile and genuine interest in my work. He'd laughed with them too. Maybe not loudly, but silence is its own kind of volume. I opened the group chat on my phone. Sullivan's United. The name felt like a bad joke now. No message from anyone. Just a photo Calla had posted. Power dinner with powerful women, captioned with a sparkle emoji. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. That was the moment it sank in, fully, finally. This wasn't accidental neglect. It was quiet, collective agreement. I'd been written out of the story. My phone buzzed. Aunt Rhea. I hesitated. She hadn't been at dinner, hadn't texted in months. I answered anyway. "Hey, sweetie," she said, voice soft, like she'd been waiting all day to say something, but didn't know how. "I heard Calla's dinner was tonight?" It was. A pause. "I didn't go. Honestly, I figured it'd just be more Calla." I let out the breath I didn't know I was holding. She continued cautiously. "Your mom told me not to worry about you. Said you were still playing with those tech toys, that you'd find your way back eventually." My fingers clenched around the phone. "I see," I said flatly. "Honey, I didn't say I believed her." "I know." We hung up a few minutes later. She tried to end on a warm note, but it didn't land. I stood up and walked to the small desk by the window. My laptop blinked to life. On the desktop were 4 folders: Farmlands Beta, Investor Report, Q3, Pitch Deck, Series B, and 1 folder in bold red font, Receipts. I clicked it open, screenshots, voicemails, emails I'd archived over the years, not out of pettiness, but pattern recognition. There was always a pattern, and I had stopped making excuses for it. Out the window, I could see a sliver of moon above the trees. Cold and distant. Familiar. That night didn't break me, but it did something better. It drew the line, and I never let them cross it again. The folder marked Receipts was still open on my screen when I stood up to refill my glass. I didn't need to reread any of it. I knew every screenshot by heart. I just wanted to feel the weight of them again, the truth I had carried alone. As I leaned against the counter, sipping water, my mind drifted, uninvited, 5 years back. Boston. I was 29, working at a mid-tier finance firm on Boylston Street, trying to make sense of spreadsheets and pitch decks that felt like someone else's skin. The numbers never lied, but they sure didn't thrill me either. Every Sunday night, I'd call home, part habit, part duty. That particular night, I was standing by the window of my studio, watching rain smear down the glass, when I said it. Dad, I think I'm going to move out west. Spokane. There's a space opening up in an old grain building. I want to convert it into a test lab for this agritech concept I've been working on. Silence. Then a short laugh. Not the amused kind, the dismissive kind. Oh, so now you think you're Steve Jobs in overalls? He said, the sarcasm sharp. It's not about being anyone, I replied. It's about doing something that matters. You have a stable job, a path, and now you want to chase dirt and gadgets in the middle of nowhere? I'm not chasing anything. I'm building something. You always were good at pretending. That was the beginning of the cut. A week later, I flew down to see them in person. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd see it differently, face to face. We sat at the dinner table. Mom had made her famous garlic roast. Gideon folded his napkin once, then again. If you walk out that door, he said, don't come crawling back for help. No checks, no rescue plan, no temporary loans. I didn't answer right away. I looked to Maris. Her hand found mine under the table, for a second. Then she pulled it away and busied herself with pouring more wine. That silence hurt more than his words. I left 2 days later, with 2 suitcases, a used MacBook, and a heart so heavy it felt like lead. Nobody came to the airport. Nobody called the next day. Spokane greeted me with gray skies and a warehouse that smelled like rust and hope. The walls were chipped, the wiring a disaster, but it was mine. I slept on a cot in the corner the first week, surrounded by extension cords and invoices I couldn't pay yet. There were nights I doubted everything, but never the choice to leave. 3 months in, after a long day rewiring motion sensors, I needed to print a permit form. I plugged in the used HP printer I'd hauled from Boston. To my surprise, it auto-synced to my old cloud inbox. That's when I saw it. An email from Gideon to Theron, dated 2 weeks after I moved. Subject: about Leora Body. She's gone full delusional. Don't let her sweet talk you into investing. Let her learn it the hard way. I stared at the screen, hands frozen. I wasn't surprised, not really. But reading it, seeing it so plainly written, was a cut of another kind. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just opened the Sullivan's United group chat and left it. Then I blocked every number with our family name attached. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Now, back in Spokane, the morning sun angled through the window of my office. I blinked out of the memory as Noor stepped in, tablet in hand. Investor docs ready. Want a last pass before I send it out? I nodded, pushing aside the old pain like dust on glass. It didn't hurt the way it used to. It just hardened the corners. They thought cutting me off would break me, I said. Noor didn't respond, just waited. All it did was sharpen me. I couldn't sleep. The doc was done. Noor had sent it out to our top 3 investors, and my to-do list for the day was technically clear. But at 1:04 a.m., I was still sitting at my desk, scrolling aimlessly, sipping cold chamomile tea that tasted more like regret than comfort. My Slack pinged. Noor! Me. Check general. I clicked over, not expecting anything urgent. And there it was, a screenshot. Just one. Kala's name, a chat bubble. Some people are still playing with farm toys and calling it AI. Adorable. Then beneath it, the word, deleted. I didn't respond. Just saved the image to my desktop with today's date in the file name. I didn't even change my expression. Noor must have sensed the silence. Nor, me. Want me to say something? I typed slowly. Me. Nor. Not yet. The message had already sunk deep. It wasn't the words. Those were almost too predictable. It was the timing. After everything, she still thought this was a game, a toy. My chest tightened, but not from sadness. It was that colder thing, the one that made my fingers move faster, more precisely. I closed Slack and opened a private browser tab, searched for old tech media forums where Kala's ex-colleagues used to hang out. It didn't take long. A thread buried under layers of off-topic posts. Inside the bubble, life with broadcast royalty. Kala's name was mentioned more than once, and mine too, but never with kindness. One comment stood out. She had this secret chat group, Real Careers Only, used to forward her sister's startup pitches just to laugh at them. She called it Tech Barbie's Diaries, Wild Times. I stared at the screen, letting it bleed into me. It wasn't just mockery, it was sport. I wasn't just ignored, I was entertainment. For the second time that night, I didn't cry. Instead, I opened a Google Doc titled Family Incident Log. I began with the earliest wound I could remember. May 14th, age 9. Kala accidentally deletes my science fair files. And then I kept going. Each entry was short, precise. Each date, a moment I could trace. Each one felt like loading a bullet into a magazine I didn't know I'd been building. I knew this wasn't about revenge, not exactly, but I also knew silence hadn't done me any favors. I whispered to the quiet room, "You really think I haven't been watching too?" My voice barely echoed. I minimized the log and opened a new browser tab. Gmail. 2. Family group email. Subject, Family Weekend. Travel arrangements provided Edie. Hi all, I'd love to invite you to a family gathering. Location, Santa Barbara, California. Dates. Redacted. Transportation and accommodations will be fully arranged. There's something I'd like to show you. See you soon, Leora. No flourish. No guilt. Just a time, a place, and an open door they could walk through. If they dared. I hit send. Then sat back and stared out the window. The sky was a deep velvet, stars fading behind a stretch of high clouds. They used to think I was the one hiding behind screens. This time, I'd be the one controlling what they saw. It was a Sunday morning, spring light slipping through my kitchen blinds. I had just brewed a second cup of coffee and was flipping through updates on my phone, mostly out of habit. And then I saw her. Kala, in white. Veil trailing behind her like a cloud, bouquet clasped against a picture-perfect smile. Her new husband, whose name I couldn't even recall, was frozen mid-laugh beside her. The caption, "What a perfect day for our family." I blinked twice. Scrolled back. No prior post, no announcement, no engagement celebration I remembered, and certainly no invitation. I tapped into the family group chat. Nothing, no countdown, no mention of flights or dresses or toasts. Just that photo. My fingers gripped the edge of the countertop. For a second, I couldn't tell if it was shock or just static. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, her voice too cheery. "Leora, I was just about to—" "Did Kala get married?" A pause. 1 second. 2. Then, "Oh, yes. Yesterday, actually. It was beautiful. I didn't know there was even a wedding planned." "Well," she started, her voice softening into that maternal apology she'd weaponized for years. "We didn't think you'd be comfortable. It was very media-centric. A lot of cameras. Kala said she didn't want you to feel out of place." "Out of place," I repeated. The words tasted metallic. "You know how these things go, honey. Sometimes it's better to just keep things simple." I hung up without saying goodbye. Later that night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, brushing my teeth. I stared at my reflection, toothbrush paused midair. There was no card, no call, no RSVP to decline. They didn't forget me. They erased me. Weeks passed. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, Theron texted, "In Spokane for work. Coffee?" I agreed. not out of warmth, but curiosity. He met me at a quiet spot downtown. No pleasantries. Just 2 paper cups and weather talk before he leaned in. I didn't agree with it, he said. With what? The wedding. Not inviting you. I said it wasn't right. I nodded, unsure whether to thank him or keep my guard up. Then he pulled out his phone, hesitated, and tapped something. She doesn't belong in my world, Kala's voice said through the speaker. She's not presentable. The words hit like a punch. I sat still, jaw tight. Theron turned off the audio. I saved it. I don't know why, but I thought you had a right to hear it. I swallowed once, then said, "Thank you for not deleting that." He didn't respond. We parted ways without hugging. That night, I updated the family incident log. March 22nd. Wedding. Excluded. Voice memo. Not presentable. Then I opened a new message window and typed a text to Kala. Just so you know, I heard what you said. One day, you'll wish you had invited me. I hit send. No reply came. And honestly, I didn't expect one. Warnings aren't for the ones who listen. They're for the ones who think they're safe. The buzz of Noor's footsteps rushing down the hallway was always a signal. Something had happened. But this time, when she pushed the glass door open to my office without knocking, her face said more than urgency. It said war. "You need to see this," she said, tablet in hand. She tagged us. I took it, not asking who she was. I already knew. There it was. Kala Sullivan, verified. There's a fine line between tech innovation and tech cosplay. Some folks are out here pretending with their farm cameras. Hashtags. Yakju reality check. Respect the grind. Media realism. And beneath that, our platform tagged. Our investors tagged. A punch to the throat in public format. I scrolled through the comments, laugh reacts, applause emojis, a few corporate peers chiming in with thinly veiled shade of their own. It was going semi-viral in our space. Fast. Noor stood in front of my desk, arms crossed. We can't let this slide. But I didn't flinch. I leaned back in my chair, thumb still resting against the screen, rereading the post one last time before locking the tablet. We're not going to respond publicly, I said. We're not sparring. We're setting a trap. She looked confused. I opened my laptop and forwarded the post. No caption, no commentary, to a senior contact I knew in Kala's corporate HR department. Her firm had strict public image guidelines, especially for directors who held public trust accounts. Let them handle it, I said. Noor raised a brow. That's cold. I didn't argue. I didn't smile either. The next week passed quietly. I didn't bring up the post again. Didn't check if she took it down. Didn't need to. Until Wednesday morning. An industry friend from LA called me out of the blue. Hey, did you hear? Your sister got pulled into a PR freeze meeting. Internal audit, reputational exposure clause or something. She looked rattled. I thanked her for the heads up, closed the call, and went back to work like nothing had happened. But inside, a switch flipped. They always thought I'd never hit back, that I'd stay quiet, passive, defeated. But the difference now was, I wasn't fighting for acceptance. I was preparing for reckoning. Later that evening, I stepped into the private conference room in the back of my office. Noor was already inside, multiple screens casting light across the table like a command center. Documents lined the wall, spreadsheets, quotes, transcripts, photo captures, timestamps, email headers. Every insult, every exclusion, every manipulation mapped like evidence in a courtroom. Noor didn't need to ask. She tapped the final screen. Everything's lined up, time to the second. We pull one trigger. There's no version of this where they recover clean. I nodded once. My voice was calm, almost eerily so. Good. Then I looked at the display again. Because I'm done whispering. The first jet left Newark at 9 a.m. A second took off from Chicago. By noon, a third rolled onto the tarmac in Houston. They didn't know where they were going, only that the invitations had come in sleek black folders, sealed with gold foil and sent by courier. No explanation. Just 2 lines. Travel included. Dress for dinner. A small part of me wondered if any of them hesitated. But curiosity was a powerful drug, especially in my family, where mystery usually meant money. I watched the flight tracker from my tablet. Every dot on the screen moved like a piece on a chessboard. Gideon, Maris, Olivia, even Calla. They were all in the air. For once, I controlled the altitude. They used to fly without me, I said to Noor, who sat quietly across the aisle. This time, I own the wings. She smirked, but said nothing. We landed in Santa Barbara first. The villa I'd rented stretched across 5 acres of coastal cliff, terracotta rooftops glowing beneath the late afternoon sun. By the time the last Rolls-Royce pulled through the gate, the staff was already in place. Each family member was handed a personalized welcome folder with their name embossed in silver. Calla glanced around the open foyer with suspicion. Is this a brand pitch or a family meeting? Olivia whispered back. Maybe both. Knowing her, there'll be a slideshow. Inside their folders, 8 p.m., dinner 9 p.m., presentation by Leora Sullivan. I didn't have to be in the room to feel the eye rolls. Still upstairs, I stood behind the curtain in my suite, watching their arrival from above. Their reactions were almost too easy to read. Maryse took photos. Gideon barked something about the wine being too French. Calla smiled politely, but tugged her phone out with nervous fingers. Noor entered behind me. They're here. You ready? I turned. Almost. We stepped out into the hall. As we walked, I caught snippets of conversation drifting up the grand staircase. This is absurd, Gideon muttered. Probably another startup sob story. She wants money again. My mother didn't reply. She rarely did when he played that card. Noor looked at me sideways. Still want to go through with this? I didn't hesitate. Now more than ever. By 7:30, the villa buzzed with dinner prep. Caterers moved like dancers. Plates were aligned with architectural precision. Wine glasses caught candlelight in soft flashes. I didn't join them for appetizers. I needed a moment. Alone in my room, I stood barefoot at the edge of the balcony, ocean stretching out like an endless blue dare. The air smelled like citrus and salt. Familiar, calming. But my mind wasn't here. It was in Spokane, 5 winters ago. I could still feel the sting of frozen fingertips trying to solder a busted chip heater. The bitterness of instant coffee at midnight, the ache in my back from sleeping on folded towels. Those nights had built me. Noor knocked, then stepped in. You sure about this? I'm not here for revenge, I said. She raised a brow. I smiled, just slightly. I'm here for recognition. The truth deserves a microphone. She gave a half nod. They're waiting. Let them. I pulled my hair back into a low bun, checked the slides one last time, and straightened the lapels of my black suit jacket. This wasn't war. This was the moment before. The lights dimmed at exactly 9 p.m. No announcement, no music, no grand entrance. Just silence, and then a low mechanical hum as a screen lowered from the ceiling. Some shifted in their chairs. Olivia glanced sideways at her wine. Calla blinked rapidly, probably expecting a welcome toast or an awkward slideshow. Instead, Noor handed me a remote clicker. I stepped forward. The only sound was the hush of ocean wind brushing the villa windows. This isn't a business pitch, I began, my voice even. It's a truth report. First slide. A grainy photo of me in the Spokane warehouse, bundled in layers, soldering boards next to a rusted space heater. I didn't explain it. Click. The next slide. Our early metrics, user growth charts, pilot studies with local farmers, ROI projections for our machine vision platform. Then I paired them. Every chart came with a quote. Gideon's email, she's delusional. Maris's voice memo, she just needs a real job. Calla's deleted post, tech cosplay. Laughter didn't come. No one breathed. I kept going. A shot of our Farmlands prototype at its first field test. Beside it, a text from Olivia in the family group chat. Maybe if Leora ever got out of the barn, she'd know how real tech works. I didn't glance their way, just spoke. I documented everything, not to embarrass you, but to show you what you missed. Click. A live map of global distribution partners, logos of Fortune 500 companies, articles quoting me on the future of agritech. Click. A headline: Leora Sullivan's vision raises $30 million Series B from West Coast Syndicate. Then I paused. Some of you laughed. Some of you rolled your eyes. Some of you cut me out of weddings and family photos. Click. Final slide. Kala's viral LinkedIn post, side by side with a leaked internal memo from her employer. Reputational risk. Probation. Content flagged for corporate review. Gasps. Noor didn't flinch. I didn't either. I looked straight at Kala. Some of you mocked what I built. Now you work for companies trying to hire me. I closed the laptop. Silence. Not the awkward kind, but the kind that follows an explosion. Gideon sat back, arms folded but quiet. Maris stared at the flickering candle. Olivia was frozen. Kala? Her face had drained of color. Theron finally broke the stillness. Why didn't you tell us? I met his eyes. I did. You just talked louder. That landed like a slap. Even Olivia winced. No one moved. No one reached for dessert. In that moment, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. I hadn't needed applause. I hadn't even needed apology. I just needed them to know. What they ignored wasn't invisible. And what they dismissed didn't disappear. It grew. The morning light spilled into the dining hall, warm and golden, as if nothing had happened the night before. But everything had. By the time I came down for coffee, half the family had already left. No goodbyes, no notes. On the kitchen counter sat a copy of Forbes, neatly folded, front page facing up. The Billionaire in Boots, How Leora Sullivan Outsmarted an Industry and Her Doubters. There was a photo of me standing in front of a green AI-powered field rig. I hadn't posed for it. They must have pulled it from an investor event last quarter. My phone buzzed. A string of texts filled the screen, some from cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Holy crap, Leora! Why didn't you ever say anything? Proud of you. I didn't reply to any of them. The family group chat was strangely quiet. Then a ping. Kala. PR asks that no one comment on Leora's story publicly. Thank you, and that was it. No apology, just corporate cleanup. Typical. By 10:15, I'd packed my things. While I zipped the final bag shut, there was a knock on my door. Maris stood there, her cardigan slightly misaligned, hair less perfect than usual. She didn't step inside, just looked at me for a long second before speaking. You deserved better, she said softly. I'm sorry I didn't see it then. I could have said 1,000 things, but instead, I just nodded. Thank you, that matters. Her eyes shimmered for a moment, then she turned and walked away. No hug, no big gesture. But it was something. Back in Spokane, the sky was pale and crisp. Noor had beaten me to the office. When I walked in, she grinned and pointed toward the glass wall. There, hung between our mission statement and a plaque from our first investor, was the framed Forbes cover. Beneath it, in a small wooden frame, sat an old photo I hadn't seen in years. Me, 24, crouched on a concrete floor in a winter coat, testing circuits by lamplight. I stepped closer, brushing a finger across the glass. That girl, she looked exhausted, but alive, driven. And maybe, just maybe, she'd be proud of the woman standing in front of her now. Later that night, I stayed late at the lab. The warehouse buzzed with low hums, machines calibrating, cooling fans whispering in the corners. I walked the aisles slowly, touching the edge of each new module we'd built. I passed the prototype room, the server stacks, and paused at the door marked Private Dev, LS. Inside, it was just me, just the hum of my work, my ideas, my space. I sat down at the workbench, clicked on my monitor, and opened a fresh planning doc. Across the top, I typed, 2026 Vision, Expand to Africa. Soil imaging X, crop prediction beta. I leaned back. They could keep their silence. They could pretend the article hadn't hit. But the world saw it now. And more importantly, so did I. Success didn't fix what they broke, but it gave me room to rebuild what they never took the time to see. I was dirty. My sister made fun of my bad job. 5 years later, my net worth ranking silenced her. Maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've had to sit quietly while people who were supposed to love you laughed at you, dismissed you, labeled you. Maybe you've walked away from comfort, family, approval, tradition, just to build something that felt right, even when no one clapped for you. If that's you, I want you to hear me when I say, your worth doesn't expire just because they couldn't see it. Not everyone gets a front row seat to your becoming, and that's okay. You're not building for applause, you're building for impact. What they call crazy, dirty, or a waste of time today might just be tomorrow's revolution. Don't hand the pen to people who never bothered to read your story. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated or overlooked by your own family? What did that feel like, and how did you rise above it? Drop your story in the comments or simply type 1 if this hit home for you. And hey, tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing where this little corner of the internet reaches. If this story moved you, helped you reflect, or gave you strength to keep going, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss the next story. There's more where this came from. Real voices, real lessons, and yes, real healing. Thanks for being here. You matter more than you know.